in a while, yep, you're doing your thing. That's like a little in the night crossing.
What's
I'm
the
doing my
fey
thing
line?
on, TV on Sunday. He's kind of finishing up from Saturday, or even coming in
All
and
right.
things,
You know.
they feed us.
Sometimes, depending on the way the games end, I don't get out of my chair for about 24 hours. I can't move.
You need a couch and a bed and something so you can sleep
Well,
there.
Zuck, I was going to say, they don't pay us, but they do feed us.
Yes, exactly. Hey, Zuck, the first thing we got to ask you about is Big 12 and the fact that they have decided not to expand. They will play. They will stay at 10 members. One, is this, why make this decision? And two, is it a disappointment for all these teams that really thought they were going to get a chance to enter the Power Five?
I would say, it's a disappointment, but probably been a pretty slow burn-off because originally the Big 12 wanted to move quickly. Then they opened it up to to almost made it like a dance contest or something, and it felt weird. And the two big reasons that conferences have expanded in the last decade and more is get the 12 teams to have a conference championship game. Well, you can have one with 10 now, and the Big 12 is going to do that starting next year, and it'll be a little weird. And then the other one was to start a TV network. And with the cord cutting and all that stuff, people were surprised the ACC was doing it. The Big 12 had already decided they weren't going to do that with their third-tier rights. The two best teams that would kind of lend themselves to even doing that would be Houston, except you're already in the Houston market, and you want to get new markets when you do this expansion stuff. I mean, the fact that they could have had Louisville a few years ago and didn't get them or didn't take them, that was probably a pretty big mistake. Cincinnati would have been a comparable grab, I suppose. But they decided they're not going to have a TV network. BYU was the number one choice for Oklahoma, but BYU comes with a lot of social issues, and a lot of campus uproar was already taking place across the Big 12 about including BYU. And the smaller teams in the Big 12 wanted to expand because it ensures security. But the biggest security item for the smaller teams in the Big 12, the smaller schools, is the happiness level of Oklahoma and Texas. And in the end, if Oklahoma and Texas don't want to do something, the little guys can't cry about it because Texas would have an invite from probably every power conference but the SEC. Oklahoma could go with them out west like we thought they might have a few years ago. The Big Ten could take them. The ACC could take Texas. The ACC could take Kansas. If the ACC wanted to go super giant, that is. But the other teams such as Kansas State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, they have to be worried that things just stay at 10 and don't go down, because if it goes down, then they're just dead.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah.
And then maybe they're joining the American.
Oh.
And so in the end, I wasn't surprised. It was very public, and I thought very weird that they were doing all these video conferences. And
Yeah,
whatnot.
no, it felt like a reality. It felt like
when it's over.
Yeah, it felt like a reality show. Like, next contestant is for the Big 12 expansion is.
Come on down.
I'm telling you. Now, well, there's a couple of questions to follow up on that. One, is this completely dead? And then two, how much of the fact that there was and I've only read this, so I don't know how true this is, but I'm assuming it is, that if they did expand to 2 or 4 teams, that there's a clause that forces a higher rights fee for the broadcast networks. How much of that came into play?
A higher rate fee, you said?
Yeah, for Fox and ESPN, they'd have to pay a higher rate.
Yes, well, that's in there. I mean, that's in their contracts, and so it's similar with other contracts, I'm sure. But basically, they would have had to pay the conference $25 million more per school, and they're probably going to pay the conference. Now they're going to pay the conference less than that.
Yeah.
And the schools are going to still make more money now because they're going to get more rights fees, and they add the lucrative conference championship game. So they're going to get their money. And as far as the first part of that, the statements being made from the Big 12 schools and the Big 12 is that they will still consider expansion in the future. And I think the most interesting statement of anybody's was from Houston, because Houston was this weird character in the mix, because as football goes, they're the best choice just for football. There's the market thing we already talked about, where the TV market's already kind of included in the Big 12 picture because of Texas already being there and all the other Texas schools. And so Houston comes out with this statement saying, we will find our proper fit, something to that effect. And I'm thinking, I mean, you're basically saying to the American Athletic Conference, your home currently after you've risen up from other leagues like Conference USA, you're basically saying like, yeah, we're just renting here. We're not really happy. We're gonna find another spot, hopefully at some point too. But the SEC already has Texas A&M.
Yep.
And from a football perspective, because again, so much of this is money. It's the front office. It's the presidents. It's not the athletic directors, let alone the football coaches, of course. But the coaches are going to be happy at Kansas State. They're going to be happy at Oklahoma because as a market for TV, it's a giant. As a market for college football recruiting, it's one of the top 3 probably in the country as a city area goes. And so Oklahoma goes to the Houston area. LSU, Arkansas, A&M, they all go to the Houston area if they're not feeling like they're already in it. Kansas State goes to the Houston area to get their players. So if Houston's in the Big 12, fewer players are going to leave to go to a school in the Big 12. So the coaches are probably pretty happy about that, too. It
was a good explanation. And you mentioned A&M before. Of course, we get it coming up on Saturday. The SEC on CBS, seventh-rated A&M against number 1 Alabama, who, as I said when I introed Adam Zucker, who's with us now, Bama seemingly getting better by the week. That's the big matchup. They just look really good. Well, I wanted to ask you this here, Zuck. A big picture about some of the individual stars in college football. There's obviously a lot of, or at least, 3 or 4 really, really good teams. But I feel like this year, maybe more so than years past, whether it's McCaffrey, whether it's Deshaun Watson, whether it's even Kaiser from Notre Dame, lesser extent, some of the true stars of the college game, they have not really performed the way we thought that they would. An aberration, or has this maybe happened more often than I think?
You know what? Maybe guys are so good so young that when they have their down year, it comes, if they were coming back next year, they'd have that great year again. I mean, Jalen Hurts hits the ground running because he was on campus running the scout team as Deshaun Watson, so he comes in we call him a true freshman because he didn't redshirt last year because he was in high school. He graduated high school in December. He posed as Deshaun Watson for the scout team, was there through spring football, and here he is as a true freshman. So part of it is, to answer your question, though, part of it is injuries. So McCaffrey, Fournette, they've been hurt. Part of it is the surrounding cast. Stanford's not opening the holes that they used to. Deshaun Kaiser isn't throwing to the receivers he was throwing to in the past. Josh Rosen, especially at UCLA, they can't run the ball. If they can't run the ball, well, that tells you that the O-line's in trouble, and he's getting killed. I mean, he was injured before he got injured in that game 2 weeks ago, and then he sat out this past week because of with his shoulder, the wrist, and he already had the leg injury. So, part of it is your surrounding cast. He doesn't have the weapons to throw to anymore. Fournette, I'd love to see him get back out there at full strength, but you see Darius Geis. Fournette even said to me in the preseason, like, this guy, I mean, he's set because he's backing me up. He's just as good as me, and he's going to be so fresh when the NFL comes looking for him. But then he goes in, and he's now leading the SEC in yards per carry. And he took it over from Travion Williams, the true freshman at Texas A&M. And so, there are still stars. Watson is probably the one that surprises me more.
Yeah, I agree. It's been very confounding.
He even apologized for it because Clemson has all their guys back. Maybe not everybody on the O-line. That's probably the difference. But they even brought back Mike Williams, who was the kid 2 years ago, or at the beginning of last year, who ran like collarbone first into the upright week 1. So he's come back, and he's actually saved their butts a couple times. So Clemson as a whole, it's weird. Like, Alabama doesn't look complacent. Clemson almost looks like they're the team that won the national title last year. And granted, we all thought very highly of them after that national title game. Nick Saban said, I had to do the onside kick because we couldn't stop them when they had the ball. Our best defense was that amazing onside kick.
Yeah.
So there is something that Clemson's not doing to execute in some of these games. And granted, playing at Auburn's no joke, and Auburn's defense is great. The game against Louisville probably was their best performance to not only stop Lamar Jackson, but to score on that team. But then it comes this past weekend, and they're up against it with really about to lose to NC State at home. They're about to lose that game, but the kicker misses. So, and NC State's a hard-hitting team. They knocked Wayne Gallman out early, and he also has been down this year. So you're right. There's some guys who aren't doing it. I love Deshaun Watson, and I still think that he's got a huge future. Myles Garrett's another one where injuries played a role. By the time that Arkansas game was over, he couldn't even get down in his stance, and still he was out there. So, yeah, man, as Tiki knows, physical game, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's not easy, bro.
It's a game of attrition. Who can stay healthy the longest is ultimately who ends up winning.
Zuck, good catching up, man. You know that I think you do a heck of a job leading the crew. Got a good head of hair. You got a good good voice, good polish. You direct traffic well. You do a nice job, and you know that I truly mean that. So